Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer back on the East Coast. And we are looking at a little 10-game slate here on Friday night to end the work week with you guys. Got a couple games for you. In this one, we are taking on the Raptors are in Orlando, taking on those Magic. We'll talk about that one here, as well as another game video and our player props that we're bringing you each and every weekday of this regular season. So like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us. Also head to thelines.com. That's where we have all of our great written content. Nate throws his picks up there, as well as our odds finder tool that we have you can use to go ahead and make sure you're getting the best juice back on all these bets you're making in the NBA this season. Nate, let's get into this 10-game slate and then talk Raps and Magic.
Yeah, let's talk some Raps and Magic. Why not? Wizards +5 at Pacers is the first game on the slate. Then you got the Raptors up to -8 at the Magic, and that total is climbing as well, 221. Knicks -3 at the Hornets. The Kings +5 at the Cavs there. The other game we break down, Atlanta's up to +7.5 at the Nets. I like that total going up. It's at 230. I will take the under. Lakers +4.5 at Sixers. The Pistons +10 at Grizz. Suns -2 at Pelicans. Seems like wrong team favored there. Wolves +2 at Jazz. And then the Bucks are in a pick'em at the Mavericks to close things out here. Yeah, with the Raptors, the first thing you look at is the home road splits. They are finally back in a stadium that's full of fans, and they play a different style entirely. When they're in Toronto, the pace goes way up to 100.7 when they're on the road, and that right away is going to help you get to some overs here. And when you're playing this Magic team that's just really experimenting on the fly, I mean, there's going to be so many opportunities to press the advantage in terms of their offense, in terms of Siakam and Barnes creating for themselves or others, because you got the Wagner brothers out there, right? And both of them, while Mo actually has a decent defensive rating, I guess 113, Franz Wagner's defensive rating is around 119 this season. Mo, was typecast in that movie recently as the European guy with an attitude problem who can't play defense, right? So not too far off from Adam Sandler. And, it's just a bad matchup for him, particularly because, again, Siakam, Barnes, so skilled as big guys that they're almost like 6'11 guards out there. So I think Toronto will be scoring with ease here. Mm-hmm. They are 4-0 to the over as road favorites this season. And going over by an average of 16 points per game, which is really stark here. So I think that is the starting point you go here. Orlando, now that Paolo's back in the lineup, they're going to be scoring a lot more on the other end as well. Interested in his player prop, even though it's a relatively tough matchup for him. He just went off against the Bucks too, which we had, by the way. But with Paolo and the Wagner brothers out there, it's going to be a lot of offense for Orlando. We also got Cole Anthony back. They got Markelle Fultz back. Fultz has been extremely up and down in his few games back here, but either one of them could also exploit this Toronto defense, which is a little oversized, like I said, because of what they bring on the offensive end there. But I think Orlando will be able to get into their stuff as well. They score a lot more at home versus on the road. So if it stays at 221, I think you take the over here. But it's creeping up right now, so I don't know how high I'm willing to go.
Not too super crazy high. I think that's a very good call out from the start here is like 220, 221. That's not exactly like a low total for a Magic game and a Raptors team that's playing pretty good defense this year, at least at home. But yeah, on the road, you hope that those trends continue. Not only the 4-0 covering the over for the Raptors as home favorites, or excuse me, road favorites, but just them on the road in general. Not being quite as good on offense or defense. Really, on offense, I mean, they're still doing the same thing. They're playing faster, and they're scoring the same ways. So when you talk about a Toronto Raptors game and you want to talk about points or their success, you just start with all of the basically just go to advanced stats on NBA.com and go to the miscellaneous category for team stats. That's where you can see points off of turnovers. You can see second chance points. You can see fast break points. You can see points in the paint. And then you can also see how teams are defending all of those specific categories. And the Raptors just dominate all of those categories. Most points off of turnovers, most second chance points in the league, most fast break points in the league, and in the top 10th in points in the paint. They defend the paint really well to the tune of like 12th, 13th best in the league. They're getting back on defense pretty well, but on the road specifically, where they're playing at that 101 pace essentially, they are bottom 10, bottom 8 in terms of giving up opponents fast break points. Not exactly how Orlando beats you. Orlando doesn't really have a strong offensive identity outside of more it's Franz and Paolo and really Cole Anthony starting things, but then Markelle, we'll see how he gets back into it. Like I said, there's not really an identity with guys coming in and out, plus starting, playing 6-7 footers throughout the game also kind of throws off your rhythm at times. But I do like what I'm seeing for the over when you look at Paolo being back, their defensive rating being a little better without him. That's also a complete correlation with how often he and Wendell Carter Jr. have not been playing together. Wendell Carter Jr. is out, which is the reason I'm not comfortably saying, yeah, take Orlando to cover 8. They've covered these games at home, and they're losing at home by a lot less than 8 points a game, and the Raptors are not even able to have a positive plus minus against the spread or otherwise on the road right now. But Wendell Carter Jr. being out is so huge for their team. Their defensive rating drops from goes all the way up from 113.6 with him to 120 essentially without him. Mo Wagner being in there, Moritz has been a little bit better at 33.8 minutes a game in his last 2. 20 points, 12.5 boards, 3.5 assists, shooting 61% from the field. The 106 defensive rating for him looks pretty good, but you also look at the teams that the Magic have played lately, the Clippers that are kind of duty on offense. They had a good game against the Bucks, they only gave up 109 there, and that's at home, right? So, there's opportunity here for them with these guys in to get points, for them to at least keep it close so that this thing can stay interesting. I think you can feel pretty good about a Raptors. I actually like the Raptors to cover their team total as well tonight, which is the reason, it's kind of conflicting with me wanting to take the Magic, but I think I'm leaning points is where I put my coin tonight, as opposed to really worrying about the Magic having to cover with all these stark numbers, and we've seen them cover on the road so much. The Magic, that is 8-4 against the spread as the home dog, beating that spread by about 3 points. So losing by 4 or 5 seems about right for them, but I think we can get this to about 115, 113 in that range, and have a nice mid to high 20s game to get over this total.
Yeah, but we did just see this with the Raptors at home, and it was like no contest. It was 36-22 after 1, and then Toronto just kind of cruise control, go ahead and put up 121 on Orlando. Yeah. That game was played with a little bit of slower pace, like we're talking about. We expect the Raptors to be a little faster here on the road. They're coming off 126 against the shorthanded Lakers, who do like to play past. I think they're starting to get whole again with Pascal getting back into a rhythm. With right. Van Fleet's been in and out, and I would be worried taking the Magic to cover against a legit contender. They did manage to muck it up with the Clippers, like you said. It's stunning that they went over what this total would be, 227, playing at a pace of 91. Also stunning that they decided to play fast against the Bucks, though, right, and give up 34 to Giannis. That game would have been a lot more high scoring if Chris Middleton didn't have a complete dud, and we kind of sour on the rest of the Bucks offense. Besides Giannis going downhill right now, there's not much going on for them. So I think the Raptors much more versatile. Like I said, they really cruised. They shot 56% from the floor against this Magic team. They started Koloko to get a little bit more size because the Magic are so big, but they still couldn't keep Orlando off the line. And that's the key when you look at some of these young teams is can they generate some offense on the free throw line? And I think Toronto much worse in that department on the road. So it all kind of supports a bit more of a high scoring game, whichever side we wind up on the spread.
Yeah, and that's the name of the game is play big. It's odd because I do like Toronto down low, the way that they kind of bang down low, not dominate. They do. They really the paint is super important for them in terms of defending it and scoring from there. But then you look at Orlando, and like you said, free throws are super important. Orlando is getting to the line at the 5th highest rate in the league right now, which is understandable. Like we said, when you have guys that are taller than every single guy that they're playing against at every single position. position for them. And the opposition's free throw rate for Toronto's bottom 10 as well. They're not very good at not fouling, essentially, as they play pretty aggressively all over the place. So I think that if they get to the line, especially, you feel good about it. Maybe you just feel good about that Raptors team total that's closer to like 215 or so, and 214, and 114 for their total individually. I'd still feel good about that. Like you said, 121 last time, playing at this faster pace on the road, and there's still going to be opportunity for points in this game for sure. So
look, I think for a second this total was up to 230, and I think people were not really understanding the way these teams are both trending, and that Atlanta's offense has hit the tank. And Jacques Vaughn's Brooklyn Nets are a defensive juggernaut. I mean, straight up one of the best defensive teams out there. And a lot of it just has to do with scheme more than who's out there. I mean, he's long been their defensive coordinator and one of the most respected defensive assistants out there. And they're on a 7-game homestand here. Last of the game, 5-1 to the under in those games, including one against Boston, which is their only loss on this homestand. They're winning games by 8.4 points per game, and not covering. It's the same old Nets where they're going to pull out a win. They're going to have to do everything they can to get a win, and they're probably not going to cover. So I do not like this at -7.5. Sam, I do not like it creeping up anymore. I think this is prime territory for a teaser, though. I mean, where it was at 7.5 or 7, to get the Nets at -3 and to get that under higher, 232, maybe even 234 if you can get it at the right moment here, because I think they will be able to limit Atlanta. You know, this is what we were on 2 nights ago when Atlanta was at the Knicks. And sure enough, they score 89 points. Certainly doesn't help that they lost DeJounte Murray in the first 4 minutes. And they haven't played a full game without him yet. But that's certainly the one thing I'm worried about, is that it kind of frees Trae Young up to be the Trae Young of last season. And we get like a freewheeling game, but still no John Collins. DeAndre Hunter's questionable. Bogey is still shaking off the rust. He was 3 for 16, stepping up as the 1B option there for Trae in that last game. And Atlanta's offense on the road, just terrible. I mean, they're now dead even. They were kind of streaking more on the road versus at home. But now they're dead even in points. They're playing at a slower pace on the road by far. And Trae in his last 9 roadies, 105 offensive rating. His last 3 at the Nets, even when the Hawks were this fun run and gun team, 24 points per game, under 28% from 3. So, you know, they've been guarding him for a while. And then you look at the Nets defense at home, in particular, the entire season, not just when Jacques Vaughn took over. They're third in paint points allowed. They are allowing the 4th lowest percentage of points off twos. They are allowing the 4th most free throws, but Atlanta, 29th in free throws, 29th in 3-point percentage. They're just not going to beat you if you can deny their kind of floater game, their mid-range game. And I mean, the last thing about the total here, I think you can take under before it starts, but you could also really hit an under during the game. You look at the last 3 for the Nets, they're scoring 65 in the first half, which is top 5 in the league. Then they're scoring the fewest points per game in the second half as Kyrie and KD get a little tired. They're carrying such a huge load. And then the Hawks, you know, not great in that department either. They just got held to 48 in the second half. And they're 28th on the season in fourth quarter points per game, even worse on the road. So I think this will slow down. I think even if Trae does start to look a little good as the only point guard out there with no DeJounte, I think the Nets have the recipe to slow him down and basically stop Atlanta if it is a close game down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean that Boston and Brooklyn game was a very solid indication. That was just a few games ago after right before the Nets beat the Hornets. They lost to the Celtics 92-103 at home. super indicative of the way that they're playing right now. That was a 230.5 total. Boston also, I should mention, fourth in their last 10 games in defensive rating. So they really picked up something that we were talking about them not doing well. But that's the exact same case for these Brooklyn Nets as well. Eighth in defensive rating over the course of their last 10. You put that down to about their last 5, even better as Simmons has played a few more games over the course of their last 5, which they really need. Interestingly enough, their offense, I'm just going to bring up Watanabe just for a minute, because when he was in, it was another 3-point shooter that was super helpful for them for like a 3-game stretch. He's only played once in the last 10 games, and that offensive rating and that 3-point shooting has been indicative of not having him. Seth Curry getting better for sure, and they need him big time because I think that's going to be their basically third scorer at this point on this team. So for them to even get the points that they need, they're going to need some outside scoring from KD, and it's just not going to be the case in a game that as you mentioned, with Atlanta playing the way that they are on the road as of late. Especially, they were, like you said, a little bit better on the road on offense, especially shooting a little bit better, getting to the free throw line a little bit more. But the identity of this team was supposed to be what it's been, which is essentially emblematic of Trae Young, which is get to the free throw line or shoot open threes or create lobs for your teammates or create open threes for your teammates. And they're not shooting threes, and you can't win if you're going to shoot the amount of threes that they're shooting a game to the tune of like second least in the league. This is a team that obviously if Bogdan Bojanovic, just so you know, the one on the Hawks is Bogdan. If Bogdan had been playing, then obviously you would feel better about that as well, and that's going to be impacting their 3-point shooting. Red Velvet, Mr. Kevin Huerter not being around, also impacting their 3-point shooting. That's what happens when you sacrifice all those things for a better wing defender and a ball handler in Murray. And so, yeah, the only thing that you look at tonight that says maybe this is a game that opens up is Trae Young going off. But even if Trae Young is going off, who's coming with him? Like we haven't seen anybody put up the points. Even DeJounte to an extent, they're not scoring and they're not playing with efficiency on the road as well as at home in a way that makes you feel comfortable, betting on their totals to go over at any point in time. So 229.5 is still pretty high, like you said. I like that bet a lot. Same concept. I just don't really want to put my money on Brooklyn to have to win a game by that many points when their margin for error on offense is so goddamn small, because the ways that they're scoring are just not efficient. It's 2-point mid-range, which, look, KD, every shot on the floor is efficient. The teams that are shooting from the mid-range and scoring from there, I'm not even going to make fun of them. It's the teams that do it every single year, in terms of the Bulls and the Nets and the Suns and the teams that have those guys to play from the mid-range. The Hawks are the same concept, though, and there's nobody on their team that is the same as KD, who's a tall guy that can shoot over people. So why are you the second? Why are you the team with the second highest amount of shots from the 2-point mid-range or points scored as well? Right, when you're the Hawks. So getting to the free throw line and getting threes, that's their MO, and they're not doing that right now, making them really easy to defend. If they're going to try to do it down in the paint, as you said, Brooklyn also defending the paint to the tune of the 4th best in the league, 4th fewest points in the paint that they're allowing as well. So just put the clamps on, do whatever you want with Trae. Even if he puts up 35 tonight, I don't care. I still don't think this Atlanta team is good enough to get close to 120, 115, as they haven't been doing that even when he is going off. So without DJM tonight, I think this is an easy opportunity to get a few more points or to feel good about maybe Brooklyn winning, but definitely the under.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I kind of feel the same way about the Nets. Even if KD gets 35 and Kyrie comes 30, that the team scoring is not going to be that high. I think there's kind of an interesting same game parlay to take the over on Durant and the under for the game, because he's just going to be money in the mid range. But this is not a video game where you can just go to Kevin Durant every time until the well dries up. Like, he's a human being who's going to be tired at some point, and you have to try to find points from another source. Although he did have 55 in the last time he was in this matchup in April, and then the time before that, like I'm saying, they shut down Atlanta 14 points in the 4th quarter. That was in Atlanta, back when Atlanta was a stark home run team, back when Atlanta had Huerter and John Collins spacing the floor for them, and when the Nets had freaking James Harden and LaMarcus Aldridge in their starting lineup, 2 of the worst defenders you can find out there. And now they actually have the best defensive lineup that's played at least 100 minutes. Read into it how you will. But Kyrie, Joe Harris, Royce O'Neal, KD, and Claxton have been shutting teams down. And Von's got some pieces to go to. if he wants to. And then you look at the Nets offense, like you're saying, it's a lot of mid range. It's fourth worst paint points, fourth worst free throw attempts, and no offensive rebounds. So yeah, I mean, you can let Trey get his and not worry about anybody else beating you, and that's what most teams have been doing. That's why Atlanta has gone under 6 of their last 9 here, and they just haven't been that threatening on offense as they have been in the past.
Yeah, 100%. I'm with all of that. Not too much more to add. Atlanta is wildly disappointing right now, and they're going to need to really bring it together without a bunch of guys in there that are important to them. 3 of their most 4 important guys in Collins, DJM, and DeAndre Hunter, you could argue. So, Nate, let's go ahead and get into your first NBA play a prop for tonight.
Yeah, it's a game we talked about, the Nets and Hawks, and kind of contrarian. We like the under for the game, but like the over for some of the big stars out here, especially Kevin Durant, who's just, 27.5 points. It was closer to 29.5 before Kyrie really started cooking. But this is a better matchup for Durant, or at least has been in the past. I mean, great matchup for both of them, to be honest. But Durant in his last 4 against Atlanta, 37.5 points per game on a 33% usage. He had 55 the last time these teams met in April. Higher usage rate at home for Durant, 32%. He's scoring 31 at home versus 28 on the road. His last 7 in general, filling it up with 32.5 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. He has 5+ assists in 10 straight games. So, he is the offense. Kyrie is the off guard, and Durant is your point small forward. So you can combine the points, 27.5 with assists if you want. I mean, I think I just take the points straight up. And I mean, that's pretty much the long and short of it. I mean, I don't love any of the player performance doubles for Durant because it's like he's expected to get 30, but that tells you what you need to know about betting for 27.5. It's like the only way this doesn't hit is if Atlanta drops only 89 points like they did last game out against the Knicks. But I think now that they understand they don't have DeJounte Murray for an entire game, they'll be a little bit more prepared schematic wise to run around Trae Young like they have the past few seasons. And I think they will score enough to force Durant to be a factor down the stretch.
Yeah, I'm looking at that same game parlay with you when you've got a situation where it's 2 teams that have stars that can still score and nobody else that you feel comfortable about scoring right now. Plus, both teams are playing better on defense than they are on offense anyway, especially the Nets. So you expect this game to be a little bit slower, but KD can thrive in any situation. If you're going to be a 2-point mid-range scorer predominantly, you don't need to play at a super strong pace to be as efficient as he is, shooting better than 50% from there. So I'm going to go under on a guy that seems a little odd in a game where the Knicks are playing the Hornets, and the Hornets do not play defense, and the Knicks have been going over on their totals. But Julius Randle, his points is at 23.5 tonight. His PRA 37.5. I would go under on both of those, Nate. 23.5 minus 105 on DK if you go under there for the points. He is coming off a huge game against the Hawks, a team that we just spoke about is backsliding its ass off, 34-17, but he's also done that multiple times in the last 2 or 3 seasons against the Hawks, just dominating them, especially the last few rounds. But if you look at the last 10 games or so for Jay Randall as well, the teams that he is scoring and getting these props on are the teams that are not good at defending the paint, as opposed to the teams that are good at defending the paint, right? So Cleveland and Milwaukee, 2 teams he did not do well against. Memphis also with Steven Adams in there, and Jaren Jackson Jr. played in that game, unable to get anywhere close to this prop, either of these props in terms of points or the PRA. But then when he's playing against a team like Atlanta or Detroit and even Portland to a degree, he kind of goes off a bit more. So I think there's some clear correlation there. You've also got his last 4 against Charlotte just doesn't look good. 16.5 points per game, 7 boards, and 4 assists. Really stark, shooting 36% from the field with a 96 individual offensive rating in 35 minutes. So, PJ Washington seems to be a pretty good matchup for him, even if he's not a great matchup for other guys down low being undersized. This is a guy that's closer to his size. Obviously, in his last 3 home games, PJ's got basically a defensive rating of like 95 in all those games individually. And that's a huge reason why Charlotte's allowing 7th fewest points per game to power forwards. PJ Washington really moved off of that 5 spot that he was playing small ball and not working last season, and is now alongside obviously Mason Plumlee for the most part. So I think him guarding Julius Randle is not great for Jay Randall in this one, and they're gonna have to find other ways to win in a game. I think they'll still be able to pull out, but not because Jay Randall is going to be putting the ball in the net.
Yeah, last game it was really a cold night for Brunson, and Randall picked up the slack, but
Yeah.
that could be reversed based on the matchup you're looking at, where Charlotte's just terrible against guards, and really good against power forwards. Yeah, PJ, those aren't his last three home games, but they are his last three in this kind of matchup against like a team that has a big power forward. They're against Milwaukee, Minnesota, and Philly. He struggled against Washington and the Clippers, who are spread you out. Kuzma, Paul George if he's active, whatever. They're going to spread you out at the four and make you guard in space. But the Knicks are not spreading anybody out, so that's why Randall's, I think, struggled in this matchup. Look, yeah, I said I wanted to take Nola here at +2 at home against the Suns. I know the Suns are unlikely to lose 3 straight games. I mean, they certainly wouldn't like to, but I don't know if they have a choice in the matter because I think New Orleans is the best team in the West right now. Both ends of the floor, really good when Zion's out there. They've won 8 of their last 9 at home, the exception being against Boston, which cannot lose. So Zion is at 25.5 points, and the odds are not great there. But so why not just take 25 points in a win, and then all of a sudden you go from -120 to +220? Because the Pels, I mean, this is their path to victory, especially with Brandon Ingram out, is feeding Zion early and often. You're looking at a Suns defense that's been kind of a sieve, and at least in these last 3, I mean, 2 of them being blowout losses to Dallas and Boston, but 22nd in defensive efficiency and 26th in 2-point percentage allowed. So that's key. Zion, of course, just getting whatever he wants and facilitating. He has 34 free throw attempts in his last 3 games. And, I mean, who's supposed to stop him? Torrey Craig, DeAndre Ayton too slow. I mean, there's nobody in the league that's really a good matchup for him. It's just a question of the Pelicans being challenged long enough for him to have that higher usage rate. He's putting up 25 in 25 minutes sometimes. So I think it's a good time to take Zion and the Pels.
Zion time. Yeah, it feels right. Man, we thought Phoenix was going to keep going when they got smacked by Boston, and guys like Zion and even Tatum and Brown. Really, Brown did a lot of the work early as well in terms of just being athletic and driving right to the rim. So it seems like pretty accurate that a guy with that type of skill set, magnified in terms of Zion, would be able to have the same kind of success driving right down the lane. So I'm actually going to finish off the props here, Nate, with another Pelly here and Joval. And this seems a little bit counterintuitive, maybe, but I think Joval's stats tonight are going to be helped by the fact that he's going to get minutes. And that's been the case when he plays. I mean, that's been the case for him on the Pellies in general, is when he gets minutes, he does well. His per 36 numbers remain pretty strong. Oftentimes it's a matter of can he stay on the floor or not. And so I think tonight you've seen what he can do against DeAndre Ayton in his career, and you feel pretty good about the way that he's played against the Suns. So I'm going over 23.5 points and rebounds in 9 career games versus DA versus Ayton, 28.8 minutes per game, which is the crucial thing there to me. 26.5% usage rate in those games as well against DeAndre Ayton, which is much higher than what he's got normally this season, at about 20%. 20.7 points per game, so basically 21 and 12 for Joval over his career against DA, and it's the only 3 fouls a game as well, which is crucial, like I say, to him staying on the floor. When he gets those minutes, then he gets those stats. So in his last 10 overall, he's covered this prop 6 times. The 4 times that he didn't even get 22 minutes in the game. He only played 21 or fewer minutes, fouling out in 2 of those games. So DA is not a guy that makes you foul out. He doesn't cause fouls on the other team. It's jump hook, mid-range, jump hook, mid-range, and then I'll stand over you, even though I've never dunked on anybody in the league. So I think Phoenix bottom 10 in allowing opposition centers to score and rebound, just because DA is not really like that tough. And that, I mean, he's a presence for sure, better than nothing down low, but it's not like he's an enforcer in any way. So as long as Joval stays on the floor, I expect him to continue getting the points and rebounds that he's been getting against Ayton and the Suns in his career.
Yeah, and Chris Paul looked pretty rusty, and Devin Booker's cooled off at least a little bit. He's had some trouble against the Pels. I wish Herb Jones was playing to guard him if you were going to take the Pelicans. But I mean, I just think that leads to more rebounds. And like you said, yeah, he can stay on the floor against Ayton. If Jose Alvarado's active, that's going to be key in terms of keeping CP3 less efficient as he's had been out for a few weeks. So I think you just kind of watch that injury news and Alvarado's in there or not. I mean, yeah, I think take the Pelicans and then the Suns can figure it out when they play again at 3:30 on Sunday, which is a much more weird spot. I think the Pels handle this one on Friday night.
It makes a lot of sense, yeah. And I think you're going to have to break Jose Alvarado's ribs to keep him out of this game. He is questionable right now, but it feels like he's going to want to play against CP3 the way he loved playing against him in the playoffs last year. So that is all the time we have in our props video today. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along. We will be back with you guys each and every weekday this regular season. So until we see you next, happy betting.